Good morning. We are ready to call the recommending committee for January 13th, 2025 to order, which brings us to our announcement regarding compliance with the open meeting law.
We are in compliance.
Thank you so much. And item number 3 is public comment. Comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion, as well as the amount of time for any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. We'll start off with 2 minutes for anybody who would like to come forward and speak during the public comment portion of the agenda.
Hi, good morning. Bryce Henderson, president of No Kill Las Vegas. I'm here today for our organization to support the 2 ordinances that will increase the abandonment fine to $1,000, abandonment of animals, and also put more oversight on pet stores that are selling more animals than what someone could legally own in the city. We've been seeing a huge problem with abandonment in the city recently, and so I appreciate Councilwoman Seaman bringing this and being proactive and asking for this new ordinance. I don't know why anyone wouldn't support it, so I look forward to it being approved, and we'll be here Wednesday to make sure that it is. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? If you are going to speak in the public comment section, please come forward now. We can be efficient.
Good morning. Dave Schweiger, Money's Matter Rescue. Just want to say I also support the 2 ordinances. Also, yeah, I don't know why anybody would be against them. And then last, I wanted to commend the city of Las Vegas for going after illegal breeders. That's like amazing. And if we could keep doing that, that would help get solve the overpopulation problem that we have in the city. And that's it. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, good morning. Councilman Newton and the rest of the recommending committee. For the record, Gina Greisen, Nevada Voters for Animals. I'm here today in support of both of the animal ordinances. I mean, if you watch the news, you know the abandonment problem is a huge issue, and especially with the case Reba that made international news. And we actually worked on that case and took a lot of the tips and were involved in a lot in that case. The other case was a case that started, the other ordinance is the hoarding and the pet land. And if people, I'm not sure if everyone remembers last, I believe it was April, I was contacted about a couple that was hoarding a bunch of animals, and Clark County Animal Control was actively investigating the case, but they had not been able to make access to the house. I went over and tried to offer assistance. They denied owning a bunch of animals. I had to follow them to Boulder City, where the car was able to be pulled over, and there was a bunch of dead guinea pigs in the car. This, I don't know, where can I put this to show?
Do you want it on the screen?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right there in those little.
Right there?
Yeah, right there.
I have 6 pages, if you can see, where I listed out, these are the cells, line by line. You can see Silky Terrier, Yorkie Terrier, GP baby, that's a guinea pig baby, all the way down. I have 6 pages of this. The 250 are puppies, the 450 are small animals. And I'd be glad to make copies for y'all to see. These are all the animals that they purchased from Petland. As you can see, from 2018, 2019, 2020. This is page 2, Maltese, guinea pig babies, Chihuahuas, cockatiel. It goes on and on and on and on, even until right before they were arrested and put in jail. There's a reason that we're doing this.
Can you clarify that this was the same couple?
This is the same couple.
Okay.
This is the couple that was, sorry, I just forgot her name, Carolyn Luke and Timothy, I just forgot his last name, but they are facing 16 felonies in Clark County. I believe it's 16, and they faced dozens in Boulder City. They're currently on house arrest, and they're in plea negotiations right now on their case. But this is the reason why.
Thank you.
And they knew that the animals were dying, and they continued to sell them. I got this from a Petland employee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? If you are going to speak in this portion of the agenda, if you just want to come up front, that way we can be efficient. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Deborah Mitchell. I am in the animal welfare community. I represent Community Cat Angels, but also my job today is to, and will be on Wednesday, to spread the news as far as how we're voting on this issue. Obviously, there's a lot of support for both of these ordinances, 45 and 46. Being in animal welfare, the amount of money we spend as taxpayers and as individual rescue organizations on having to clean up when people get too many animals, the hoardings, continuing to buy more animals, the fiscal impact of this, not only with our city shelters that is completely overrun, but even us as individuals and individual taxpayers that live in the city is just ridiculous. So $1,000 for someone that abandons an animal still doesn't seem enough to me, but I know you're limited to how high you can make that. And as far as someone needing more than the number of dogs and cats and other animals in this, I can tell you as an animal welfare rescue person, people quickly get in over their head. And I can't imagine why anyone would need 12 animals or more. So I honestly cannot see why there would be any opposition for this. Having a residence and a business in the city, I'm happy to make sure our constituents know how we'll be voting on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please step forward.
Good morning. I'm Lori Heron. I'm the Executive Director of Nevada SPCA. We're the second largest animal shelter in Las Vegas and unincorporated Clark County. And I'm here in support of this ordinance. It is our belief that the animal abandonment issue is going to be solved by resources and legal enforcement. We take in owner surrender animals, almost 1,500 last year, so we are available to take in those animals. And despite that, animal shelters continue to be the front line of the abandonment. I know that there are abandoning animals all over the community, but we see it firsthand. This last year alone, Rottweiler puppy, 4 months old, tied to a pole while we were open. They could have walked in our doors. We also waive the fees if it's a pet owner in financial need, so they need to make an appointment and surrender the animal. Cats and cat carriers in the summer heat. A cat dumped off in a pillowcase that was tied at the top that we didn't get to in time. Rabbits in totes with the lid still on, and just this last month, we have on video that we did release to the media, an individual in a luxury sedan pulling up during the day, putting a cat carrier with a kitten under a wheel well of a car and driving away and talking on their cell phone nonchalantly the whole time they were doing it. Now, thank God it was daytime. Thank God it was an employee car that didn't leave until the end of the day, and thank God one of our volunteers found it, or we would have driven away and crushed that carrier. So people need to understand that this isn't something to be toyed with, so we are in full support of this ordinance. Thank you.
Is there anybody else for public comment? Hearing and seeing none, I'm closing the public comment period. Moving on to item number 4, for possible action to approve the final minutes by reference to the December 16th, 2024 recommending committee meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
There's a motion. Please vote and post. That item passes. Moving on to item number 5, bill number 2024-43, for possible action amends the Lone Mountain West Master Development Plan and Design Standards to update certain information regarding residential density. This is proposed by our Community Development Director, Mr. Seth Floyd.
Good morning, Mayor Pro Tem.
And I'll turn it over to
Lowenstein for the record.
Mr. Lowenstein, please.
The bill before you is to amend the table where there's an inconsistency in the overall density. This puts it in alignment with the 2050 master plan, and that's the sum of the bill.
Thank you very much, and I will open this up for a public hearing for anybody who would like to speak on item number 5. Please step forward now. Hearing and seeing none, I will turn it over to members of the committee if there's any questions or comments.
None.
And there are none, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve item number 5.
There's a motion, please vote and post. And that item passes, and bill number 2024-43 will be heard on the February 5th, 2025 City Council meeting. Moving on to bill number 6, this is bill number 2024-44 for possible action amends LVMC 19 to establish lighting standards for CV properties within the Lone Mountain and La Madre foothills areas as designed in the Las Vegas 2050 master plan. This is sponsored by our very own Councilman Francis Allen Polinsky. I'll first turn it over to Mr. Velada for staff to report.
Good morning, council members. Marco Vallata, City of Las Vegas Department of Community Development. For the record, the bill before you today is with respect to exterior lighting for the CV zoning district and establishes lighting standards for these districts only in the northwestern parts of the city. It adds definitions of light fixtures and shielding angles to the code, and for non-residential development, the lighting standards applies to the parking areas, buildings, and their architectural elements. Lighting shall not exceed 4,000 Kelvin, which is essentially natural white light. Fixtures on buildings greater than 35 feet must be shut off between 11 p.m. and 5 in the morning. Fixtures are required to have internal or external shielding at varying angles depending on the height. So for light poles ranging from 15 to 45 degrees from horizontal plane, and for building accent or architectural lighting at 45 degrees. And this, again, applies only to the La Madre foothills and Lone Mountain areas and civic zoning only, and the standards do not apply during emergencies or for lighting for aircraft warning lights or other beacons similar to that effect. This was approved as a text amendment by the Planning Commission at the November 12, 2024 Planning Commission meeting, and if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
I have one quick question. It's a very technical report that you just gave, so thank you. If whoever is lighting up is breaking the rule, does that become a code issue that code enforcement responds to and then goes through the process?
Yes.
Okay. This is a public hearing. For anybody that would like to question or comment, now is the time to do that. Please, sir, come on down.
Hello, Eugene Yazzie. I just want to confirm that there's no exemptions or religious exemptions or ways that the temple can sidestep these rules with some exceptions or something in there. And also the 11 p.m. Why do we pick 11 p.m.? Most of us who live in the general area and be in the backyard, 9 o'clock seems more appropriate for something like that. That's the time that we use our backyard, that sort of thing too. So having the illumination all the way to 11 p.m., why? Why can't it be 9 p.m.? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Vlad, I don't know if you want to add anything. And again, this is a public comment period. If you'd like to comment on this particular bill, please feel free to step forward.
Yep. Marco Vallata for the record. In our research, I believe we didn't find anything that specifically exempted any religious facility, and there wouldn't be in this case. There is a normal variance process for any type of project that would go through in which this situation specifically applies. So if you were to go through, you would have the ability to do a variance as you would with other code matters in which a variance is requested. I believe the same could be said about the times. I mean, we looked, and that was a pretty standard time period between which we make use of it.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, Seth Floyd for the record. The 11 p.m. was kind of the common comment that we received. We had a public meeting here at City Hall to discuss the lighting ordinance before it was drafted, and a number of times were discussed, but I think the common one that seemed reasonable, and this came from the public, was 11 p.m. So that's where we arrived at that time.
Thank you. So if I were to reiterate how I understand it, is there are no religious exemptions outlined within the bill, and 11 p.m. came about because of comments within a public town hall. Thank you, Mr. Vallata and Mr. Floyd. Are there any other questions or comments from the audience? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close comment period. Thank you. Close the public comment period. And Councilwoman, this is in your ward. I'll turn it over to you, unless there are any other questions or comments up here.
For motion?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to approve and move forward item number 6, bill number 2024-44 for a full council vote.
There is a motion. Please vote and post. That motion passes, and bill number 2024-44 will be heard at the February 5th, 2025 City Council meeting. Moving on to item number 7. Bill number 2024-45 for possible action amends various provisions of LVMC Title VII to limit the number of particular animals that can be sold by a pet shop or breeder to one person or household during a calendar year, establish corresponding documentation and compliance requirements, and establish and update penalty provisions pertaining to the keeping and sale of animals. This is sponsored by Councilwoman Victoria Seaman. I will first turn this over to anybody from staff who's going to be presenting.
I can make a presentation here before the councilwoman gives her statement.
Okay.
And then I think Mr. Tovar is here in the audience for any questions.
Mr. Tovar, you should get ready because I have some questions.
This bill, as mentioned in the reading of the title, establishes limitations on the number of particular pets that can be sold by any pet shop or breeder during the calendar year. Corresponds to the number of animals that can be possessed, with the exception of guinea pigs. There is no limit on guinea pigs as far as possession go, but this bill does limit the number of guinea pigs that can be sold yearly to 2. It also establishes a requirement that once Animal Protection Services establishes forms to assist these businesses in reporting their sales, they have to document those sales and report quarterly. A violation of either the sales limitations or a failure to report is citable as a civil and criminal offense, but the civil option is available. Those penalties are set forth in the ordinance. $500 for violation of those provisions. That's my presentation.
One question for you, is the $500 to the business or to the employee?
Business.
It's outlined in that for the business?
Well, it's whoever's cited, so typically the business would be the cited, the person cited, but if the employee is cited, then it would be the employee.
Okay. The questions, Mr. Tovar, is just my typical line of questioning around the resources we have to enforce this particular law. And I know that the city celebrated some great work that the Department of Public Safety did with your team in particular around the illegal breeding and purchase and sale of animals. We had a huge accomplishment. So I'll give you maybe a minute or two just to talk about that operation. And then I want to talk about the resources for this particular bill and how those resources kind of are used within DPS, if that's okay.
Rudy Tovar, DPS manager, for the record. So the first question is, you wanted me to
Just highlight the amazing work that DPS did.
Oh, okay, yeah. So recently, under the guidance of Chief Potts, we teamed up with our marshals who took the lead in order to address illegal breeding and backyard breeding. So what they're really looking for is individuals that are overbreeding animals, and you can find them on Craigslist, Facebook, Instagram. So they're not looking necessarily for like your mom and pop breeders that might have had a mistake. They're looking for those that might have a criminal element attached to them. And so they were able to initiate conversations with these individuals online and then eventually meet up on city property to go ahead and make the citation, which is a criminal citation for the record. And they were also able to confiscate a number of weapons and other contraband. So that was, in a nutshell, that operation. And so, like I said, that was led primarily by our marshals. When you're taking on illegal breeding, it's extremely dangerous. And so our marshals are far more capable of dealing with that at a park. When it's at a home, it's a little bit more controlled. My team can address that and work through that. But when you're looking to meet someone up in sort of a sting operation where you're utilizing your folks as detectives, that's where the marshals played in, and Chief Potts went ahead and put that initiative together, got us all into a room, we had a conversation, and the next day they got right to work. And when I got back, found out that there was a bunch of citations issued.
That's awesome, and your team should be congratulated, because I know there was a lot of, there was the criminal element, but there was a lot of puppies that you prevented, hopefully, and the sale of puppies was something that you guys worked towards, so thank you for that. The resource issue, because I know we have limited resources, I just want to chat about, or you to chat about, how do you communicate a potential new law to businesses that are out there selling animals? How do you communicate this to them so they're aware of the new law? And then how do you, and what resources do we have to enforce it when it's in place?
So for this particular one related to the sales, it's not overly difficult because there is already a reporting requirement based for USDA. So the USDA reporting requirement is looking for where the animals are coming from, and that was related to puppy mills. In this case, it will tack on a new report that focuses simply on the sale of the animal and providing those figures. That'll be a separate report. I'll go ahead and create a template for other businesses so that it's uniform and it's very easy for them to essentially bring this on board. As far as the resources for my team, we would just have to add one of our administrative staff to take a look at these quarterly reports and identify if they see any trends. But ultimately, the business is going to be held accountable for letting us know. Like Val said, there are some penalties there. If it's simple reporting penalties, those we can just address with them. Hopefully, they get it squared away right away. If they start giving me problems, then we're looking at civil. And if it's egregious, then we would be looking at criminal.
So just on the practical nature, like on a quarterly basis, DPS will send an email with an Excel spreadsheet to everybody who's licensed to sell animals within the city of Las Vegas? Is that?
So we'll provide the spreadsheet up front, have the conversation with them, let them know, hey, here's the new law, here's some of the things that you need to do, post your signage, in addition to the signage that they already got up. And so we'll get them on board. At the quarter, if they have not given us anything, we start reaching out to them. And so that's kind of how it works. So it's not every quarter we reach out to them. They know that every quarter they need to send the reports in. When they don't, we can trigger an audit on our side. So it can be random or it can be actually on the quarter. It just depends on how much risk we're seeing. I don't expect to see anyone do what occurred with the Petland case. That was very extreme. But essentially, this is kind of how we would address it here.
How many businesses are there that are in this line of business in the city?
Well, I used to have 2, which was a lot easier, but once county kind of shut down their operations, I jumped up to 10, and I'd have to look because I might even have some more in the pipeline.
So this is 10 businesses that'll fill out quarterly reports. You have administrative staff to evaluate those reports. And then if they fail to submit the report, there's a penalty there. And if there's anything egregious within the reporting, then we follow up with animal control. Is that the process?
Correct.
Okay. Those are my questions. This is a public hearing for anybody who would like to comment on this particular bill. This is bill number 2024-25. We have a question up here, so we'll...
Well, I don't know if members of the public first.
If you've already said something, unless it's something different. Okay. Then I'm going to close public comment and open it up to questions or comments up here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rudy, I'm not sure if this is for you. We don't have anybody here in the audience from the businesses, do we? Petland owners? Anybody? Anybody? Okay. I guess it's got to be from you. Maybe tell me if you don't have the answer, you don't know. But I'm just looking at this through the business person's lens. I own a sandwich shop, and if someone came in once a week, let's say Jennifer Smith came in once a week and purchased a sandwich once a week cash, and at the end of the year or at the quarter you said, how many sandwiches did Jennifer order? I would say I have no idea. She came in at cash. We don't track it. If you buy cash, if she swiped her card, of course I could probably generate a report for you, but how is this going to be always on the grid?
Okay, because like I mentioned earlier, there's already the USDA reporting aspect. All these businesses are on, they already have the data, so it's a matter of them taking that data and putting it into the spreadsheet. So for the most part, they already have it. If it's a new business trying to get established in the city, then at that point, we give them an entire packet of the entire rules, and then we bring them up to speed on, like, you cannot open your business unless you can meet these requirements, and they need to understand up front that essentially this new report is going to be a part of that also.
So I just want to be comprehensive here. I don't want to pass an ordinance that's going to be ineffective. You are confident if we pass this, the businesses will accurately report?
Well, they have no choice. So yeah, I do believe that they would accurately report. I look at it as a mitigation tool. That's pretty much the way I look at the ordinance. As far as selling too many animals, which was the problem, there wasn't a law to address if a pet shop sold too many animals to one particular household or if they were preyed upon.
Can you make any commentary about what Ms. Sheena indicated earlier, the same person, she had all the paper documenting or logging all that information in. Was the person reselling these animals? Because it was unlikely they were housing them.
Okay, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you have any commentary on potential response to Ms. Gina's logging in of the, what was it, 6 years of someone purchasing animal after animal after animal. Are they reselling those animals? Is this a business?
No, these were two individuals. They have a case. It's a criminal case. And so these individuals, they were hoarding animals. It's just flat out hoarding. And so they were hoarding animals. They couldn't care for their animals. And it became evident once all the evidence was gathered from Clark County, which is where they reside. The only way that we had interaction with them because they decided to rent a hotel within city jurisdiction. And so then we worked with Metro to get a warrant to enter the hotel. And that's where we found additional animals. And it essentially was a massive hoarding case.
I just had one question that was triggered. What would initiate a business impact statement? That's probably more for Mr. Steed.
I beg your pardon?
Would this trigger a business impact
We
statement?
did a business impact solicitation.
Oh, we did? Did I miss
Yes,
that?
actually, we did two. The original one had limitations on possession, and then Councilwoman Seaman asked that we redo it, so we sent it out again. The first one, we got a general comment from a pet advocacy organization. The second one, we got no comments back at all.
Those are all the questions up here. Councilwoman Seaman, I'll turn it over to you if you have any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you. I'm really happy that we're doing this. One thing I want to say is I'm so excited about the work that you're doing with the legal breeder because that's really the problem. I wish we could regulate illegal breeding by getting them to be legal breeders the way we are everyone else, but we know that this is necessary due to the hoarding cases, and I just want to thank you for working with us through this to make it easy. And so one of the reasons we did this is the city, this is in response, as we said, to the over 50 guinea pigs and one couple leading to the deaths of dozens of animals. And I also want to address really quickly why there's no limit on guinea pigs. And the reason there isn't is because of this situation where the rescues had to take them in. So they came to me and said, please don't put a limit on how many guinea pigs we can have because we're out there rescuing them. But there is a limit on how many they can purchase. So if nobody else has any questions, I think this will go a long way in preventing future cases of animal hoarding. So I move to approve.
Sorry. That item has passed. It's bill number 2024-45 and will be heard at the January 15th, 2025 City Council meeting. Moving on to number 8, bill number 2024-46 for possible action, amends LVMC 7.44.040 to increase the penalty for animal abandonment to $1,000. This is sponsored by Councilwoman Victoria Seaman. And I will...
Mr. Steed would like
Mr. Steed, it's your show today.
Thank you. Councilwoman asked that we increase the minimum penalty to $1,000, either civil or criminal. Right now, abandonment before this bill was a subset of animal cruelty, and so there were graduated penalties for all types of animal cruelty, including abandonment, and she requested that we carve it out and have a flat 1,000 feet each penalty for abandonment, so that's what this ordinance does.
Thank you. Mr. Tovar, do you happen to know how many times we've used this law or made a citation in the last, like, say, year? I don't want to put you on the spot. I should have asked on January 31st, or January 1st, I'm sorry.
Rudy Tovar, DPS manager for the record. I'm not certain, but I do have a spreadsheet that logs so I can actually go back and pivot and figure out. Abandonment is not one that I see often. We typically are seeing a lot of cruelty, not that abandonment doesn't occur. It's just sometimes it's difficult to prove straight abandonment. The case they had in Clark County was very cut and dry. Folks left the animal. He was still alive in a crate outside. For us, when we see abandonment, it's typically if there was some sort of eviction or someone's not living in the home, but they have some sort of connection to the home, and we're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and we feel that there's no care being given. At that point, that's when we're looking at typically abandonment in our case. We just utilize that code. If the animal looked healthy, but essentially, you don't know what the house looks like, the owners are not being very responsive, that's when we typically see abandonment in that nature.
And this is usually an enforcement issue for animal control, or do you see Metro and our DPS marshals using it as well?
Metro can use it, can address abandonment in the more serious cases, like the one in the county. That was a very serious case. So they'll take that abandonment. When it's sort of like a routine abandonment where we're going back and forth with someone who we think might be the owner, we kind of got an understanding of who the person might be that actually owned this animal. That's typically us. We will call Metro if it's if we need help. If we need warrants, things of that nature, then we'll call Metro and they can come and help us.
Thank you, Mr. Tovar. I appreciate the ability to put you on the spot. One more question, and then I will open it up to public comment for anybody who wants to say anything.
Rudy, how many times in the last year, so let's just go with the calendar year 2024, have you or Metro used this ordinance to fine someone either criminally or civilly?
So this would be criminal. There is no civil penalty for abandonment.
Okay.
That is criminal. And like I said, I'd have to go back and re-look and get accounts for that. It's not one across my desk that I see too often. Mainly what I'm seeing is folks that leave animals in vehicle, especially see that one a lot. And there's just your general cruelties where no food, shelter, water, sustenance deprivation is what you see a lot too. So a lot of times with the abandonment, there is that substance deprivation component attached to it, but just straight abandonment, yeah, I'd have to go back and look.
Okay, and Mr. Steed has educated me here on the side, and I want to make sure it's known for the record that currently, right now, the penalty is for first offense, $200 fine, second offense, $500 fine, and the ordinance will change that. There's no more graduated system. It would just be $1,000 for a first offense, correct?
Val, can you give me a hand on that one as far as the penalty? It definitely increases to the 1,000 minimum or essentially mandatory. I don't recall the jail time if there was any change there, but I think that essentially what the bill aims to do is to make at least a $1,000 penalty, and that would be occurring at the court.
Okay, and I guess this one's for Mr. Steed. Right now, what's the penalty for misdemeanor DV? You don't know offhand?
Every misdemeanor is limited to $1,000 to 6 months in jail, no matter what kind.
Well, for some, having spoken to Carly about this, I believe for DV it's 500 because the burden to the claim.
Yeah, if she knows something I don't know, that's great for her.
Okay, fair enough.
One question, again, kind of back to the lines of how do we make sure people in the community know about this? Because we've passed lots of laws, and I run into people all the time that have no idea what laws we passed. How do we communicate it?
Yeah, so that's a little bit tougher. We'd have to work with our PIO office, and hopefully they can get something out, and then just through our internal channels, and whatever the media picks up on this, that's pretty much what we're looking at. It's kind of hard. When we do contact with folks, and we meet people out, we always give them advice on what responsible pet ownership is. So in general, abandonment as a whole is something that we make sure that they understand. These are the things you can't do. You can't leave your animal like this. You got to make sure that there's shelter, water, so that it just becomes a part of our, it already is incorporated essentially into our education.
I've been on a couple of ride-alongs with your crew. They're awesome and amazing. So what I generally see is if they come into contact with somebody, they kind of explain the rules. If they don't come into contact, they have blue tape and they tape something on the door of that residence. So just to make sure is if this were to pass, this is something that goes into the brochure, this is something that goes into the information, so that if there is that communication between animal control and someone who's not treating animals correctly, that there's an awareness of a fine or a fee because of what they're doing.
Yeah, you're correct about the notice that gets posted. So the notice gets posted on anytime we don't have communication with someone. If the case is or if the activity is what we call it, if it's abandonment, that because it's a criminal component gets followed up on. So we just create another call and we continue to create calls. So yeah, that'll be communicated. We'll hopefully find whomever owns the animal at some point.
on the criminal side, does animal control within DPS, do they alert the marshals or do they alert Metro if it's within the city?
On the criminal side, we can issue those citations, so we don't have to alert anyone. We do alert Metro if we need a higher degree of law enforcement activity, because that would be within their jurisdiction.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Again, this is a public comment period. If you'd like to comment on anything different than that may have been mentioned in the public comment period, please do so now. Thank you, Mr. Tovar. We'll limit the time to 2 minutes.
Sure, just real quickly to kind of address one of your questions, Councilman Knudsen. This bill is more than just raising revenue for the city. It's making a statement to the citizens that says, hey, the city of Las Vegas takes abandonment seriously. And I will make sure that the media reports on this and people are aware that there's now a $1,000 fine if you abandon your animal. And I think that will go a long way for people who are considering doing something like that. It will deter them, and they'll think twice, and maybe they'll go to the shelter to relinquish their animal instead. So that's where I think this will have the biggest impact. Thank you.
Could we have your name again for the record, sir?
Yeah, Bryce Henderson.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else for the public comment period?
Deborah Mitchell, animal welfare advocate. As far as the amount of questions of whether to raise it to $1,000, by the time it gets to the point where we're investigating it to that level, is really $1,000. What we spend in rescue when someone is abandoning an animal is at least $1,000 per animal. So for the people that are doing the abandonment, I guess I don't understand the concern as to why $1,000 would be so difficult to set a precedence. And as far as having laws on the books that whether we have the resources, I can think of many laws we have on the books that we don't have the resources to manage every single thing, just like driver's licenses. How many people are driving on the road without a license or registration, but yet we still have a law for it, but we can't enforce it. We try to enforce it, but there's no way we're enforcing it. Everyone's on there. So if you get it on the books at least, then we can continue on how the resources to enforce it. But not having it on the books, I think you're doing a disservice to not only us as the taxpayers who are having to clean up the mess from this, but why not the people who are doing it have to have some skin in the game as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Good morning again. For the record, Gina Greisen, Nevada Voters for Animals. I believe that just like in the case of the big enforcement action that was taken, which we sincerely appreciate, there was a lot of work and meetings and years that have gone into addressing these issues. And just because it's not something that was ever done before, it doesn't mean that we don't need to be doing this. And because we do have a broken shelter system, and there's not, sometimes a place for the animals to go, that people are abandoning their animals. It's not okay to do. It's not going to be something, there's obviously discretion in the field for the officers to deal with this. There's discretion for judges to deal with this. There's discretion for the city attorney's office to bring these cases. And this is going to be reserved for the most egregious cases, like the Reba case. There was no reason for them to seal her in a container and dump her in July, during a heat wave. And do that. There were people that were offering to take the dog. There was absolutely no reason to do that. That was very intentional on the part of the people that did that. And I'm concerned too. I want to make sure that there's always outlets and that there's resources available so we don't have abandonment. But we do have to have punishment for when people do this. We see animals abandoned in the desert, parks every day. We can send you social media posts. Every single day, dog parks. Sometimes on the freeway, in intersections, in subdivisions, and the East Lake Mead going down towards the lake is a massive dumping ground for animals. So we definitely need to have strong laws on the books to send a message that we're not going to tolerate this. But at the same time, yes, we need to make sure that we have resources in place for people who get in situations if they do need to, surrender their animal. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public comment period. Are there any questions or comments up here?
Just one.
Go ahead.
I feel like I'm voting a little bit without all the information in hand. I'd love, Rudy, if you could prepare us the information on how many times this has been used in the past, how many citations are out there, if we can get some empirical data. I'd love to talk about our entire criminal justice system and how much fine should be out, and perhaps Mr. Ford can spearhead an effort to readjust fines in general, because it's definitely a good conversation to have, particularly with the inflation we've all, like, the notion that a first offense is $200 is nuts, because $200 doesn't get you much anymore. So that conversation overall should happen. I think I feel comfortable moving the bill, but without all that information, I'd rather move it with no commentary. You know, there's different levels of moving it forward with support, with neutrality, et cetera. I'd rather move it forward with neutrality. That's my own personal commentary.
Yeah, I would just to put it out there, I understand what you're trying to accomplish, but I also worked with the National League of Cities on reducing fees and fines, because what it does is disproportionately affect certain segments of our population. And generally, the people who get enforced with this type of action can't pay it anyway. So they end up just spending a night or two or a week in jail. And if we can waive them, judges sometimes will do that, or if they can't, they end up just going on the books and never being able to pay them, which is typically what happens with a lot of these kinds of things. So I'm not sure I see a huge impact with this. More information is always better, so I agree with the councilwoman. Mr. Ford, if we're able to ask for, how do you ask for that? What are your typical fees and fines?
For each criminal offense?
And there's thousands of criminal offenses. How do we narrow that down?
I don't know, the top 30?
We don't have a lot where we have specific minimums. It wouldn't, most of the time it's up to a judge to decide between 0 and 1,000. We do have some where we have specific minimum fines. This is one of them. And it's never really going to go up because the legislature has limited us to 1,000, but we can up the incremental steps if we think that has punitive or prohibitive value, but it's not a fundraiser by any means.
No, this doesn't make any money.
May I make a comment on my bill?
Yeah, could I just make a quick question?
Okay.
Mr. Ford, so I think the question that I'm going to ask is for the top 15 offenses with a minimum fine, if we're able to get from the municipal court what the judges do with that. And where they fall in line of reducing or eliminating or keeping it in place.
Yes, sir. Steve Ford, Deputy City Manager. Mike can get on that. That's no problem.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Councilman.
So let me just kind of make a little bit of a common sense statement here. When you abandon a dog, it isn't going to be gradual because they've abandoned the dog. So they're not going to go back for a second and third abandonment. So for this gradual thing, it just kind of doesn't make sense. When you abandon a dog, you abandon it. You're not going back for it. So that's why the $1,000. A case of Reba was somebody who abandoned. That was also cruelty, which is most of these cases, since they're dumped in the desert or they're dumped without food and water. And again, this is not about, fines. It's about being a deterrent so that people will stop abandoning the animals and take them to a rescue or a shelter. This is just common sense. To get it out in PR, we can go to Dave Riggleman. You have plenty of animal advocates that are constantly on social media. I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to thank you for the words of wisdom. I know that it's not a lot to charge somebody $1,000 when you end up with the animal that costs, I see the posts, they end up in surgeries because they're eating metal. I see it, and I wish my colleagues had a little bit more information about what is happening out there, because this is just a common sense bill to deter people from abandoning pets and having them run over on the freeway and ending up getting eaten by coyotes in the desert, and all the work that our animal rescues are having to do. And like Rudy said, they don't get them often, but when we do, we can at least hold them accountable, and it will deter these people from doing what they do. So I'm going to move to approve this bill to go into council and have more, if they want more discussion, it can be done at council. Thank you.
That motion has passed, and Bill number 2024-46 will be heard at the City Council meeting on January 15, 2025. Moving on to item number 9, citizen participation. This is a public comment period portion of the agenda, which must be limited to matters within the jurisdictions of the recommending committee. No subject may be acted upon by the recommending committee unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, please come to the microphone now. This is your time. We'll set the clock at 2 minutes.
Oh, sorry, that's from my cancer meds. For the record, Gina Greisen, Nevada Voters for Animals. I would like to thank Councilwoman Seaman for all the meetings, for hosting the town halls. I want to thank the Animal Welfare Task Force and the folks that are here today. We have had numerous meetings over the past few years begging for these kinds of issues to be addressed. We deal with these issues daily. Pregnant dogs that have rocks in their belly because they've been abandoned, and we don't even know if the puppies are going to survive, if they have to have surgery to remove the rocks from the belly. Dogs hit by cars. I can't tell you the tens of thousands of dollars that I have raised. I can't get a donation for what I do, but I can raise funds all day long for dogs with broken legs, and I don't know if you've ever paid for that, but it's minimum $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000. We had one little dog that was a cruelty case that had one back leg broken, then the girl broke the other back leg, and I believe that one ended up being about $15,000, and she was adopted by a former city animal control officer. Anyway, I want to thank Chief Potts. I want to thank Rudy. I want to thank Tim Hacker. We have had multiple meetings. I don't know if people really realize all the work that has gone into all of these issues where we beg, we cry at these meetings, because this is what we deal with on a daily basis. The rescues are overwhelmed. We're drowning. And I would say perhaps this would all be addressed if the Animal Advisory Committee had been passed, because that was the whole purpose. I requested the Animal Advisory Committee. We've been begging for it, please. This would address all these issues. We could go in and revamp all the titles, all the ordinances at the county. Henderson's doing it right now. County's doing it. City's doing it. North Las Vegas is doing it. We would like, we're asking, we want to be part of the solution. We want to go back in and fix the codes, increase the penalties, maybe drop off laws that aren't working. And there's just a lot of things that are going on. But please, this is why we need the Animal Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Are there anybody else here for public comment? Hearing and seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.